Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Thanks for listening to the show. Join your hosts, Bill Alvstead and Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Hey, hi, Seahawks fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstead, sitting down with co-host Keith Myers, here to talk all things Seahawks. Seahawks coming off of a bye week, and things are getting very interesting on the roster, Keith, and lots of stuff to talk about, including the game coming up against the 49ers in Santa Clara on Sunday. It's a rematch of the division rival game. Seahawks dropped that first one and look to kind of figure it out and right the ship and maybe make some additional progress on the defensive performance they had against the Rams. The offense was discombobulated. They have yet to, for me, to play a real complete game this year, and things are starting to get dysfunctional in the locker room, with the coaching staff, with the front office. Like, I'm not exactly sure what's going on. I would imagine those tuning in or hearing this show have heard the news that the Seahawks moved on from Tyrell Dodson earlier in the weekend, promoted Tyrese Knight to the starting linebacker job, weak side linebacker job. Dodson's out of a job, gets cut, gets claimed on waivers to Miami. Some things are being said about all that. We'll talk about that in a minute. And the big news today, and I heard rumors and inklings of this, didn't know what to make of it starting last night, and just didn't want to put anything to it because it wasn't a credible source. But it turns out it was true what I heard, and it's that Connor Williams, the starting center for the Seattle Seahawks, has decided to abruptly retire from the NFL at the age of 27 after playing half a season. And things weren't completely perfect with his play and so forth, but he was still one of our better linemen overall on the team. And not sure what's going on with this one, Keith, because it's so complex and so in depth. And of course, things are going to be kept private as far as conversations that they had with him. According to Mike McDonald, this kind of came on and kind of got more serious as the week went on, and things were announced today at the news conference that Mike McDonald had after practice. And Mike McDonald said Connor Williams no longer with the team. He's decided to retire. Doesn't sound like he's going to return or change his mind, and they're moving forward with Oluwatimi as the starting center moving forward.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff, Keith. Welcome in, man.
It's really crazy stuff. I'm not convinced it's going to be Oluwatimi. But
he said that out loud. Like he
did say that out loud.
Said Oluwatimi is the starter. We're going to give him all the chance and all the opportunities that he has. Yeah.
Well, they have carried three centers all year, which to me was always a little weird, and I'd always threatened it. Did it say something or not? They didn't.
The reason that they did that was explained. Yeah, the reason it was explained to me was that Jalen Sundell had the positional versatility, not just at center. And that's, in fact, why he was carried on the roster the last 2 weeks, and Oluwatimi was put on to the inactive list for those games, is that Sundell could play tackle as well. And so they carried him knowing that Connor Williams was there. And then now that Connor Williams is out, Oluwatimi is actually their center that they prefer. And Sundell still has that versatility that he's the backup there. So that's the reasoning.
Okay, because you look at the fact that Oluwatimi's been a healthy scratch the last 2 weeks, and you wonder what's going on there. It has Sundell, but I didn't realize that the Seahawks believed he could play tackle because I don't, but I guess in a pinch where multiple people get hurt,
They don't. Yeah, exactly. They didn't want him to have to play, but he could have played, and you can only carry so many linemen on game day, so that's the reason, I guess.
Yeah.
So let's get into the nuts and bolts of this Connor Williams thing. Then we'll talk about Tyrel Dodson. Then we'll talk about some other stuff. But I just kind of want to, clearly the team and Mike McDonald felt that there was some exploring of Connor Williams potentially playing guard, and then apparently that decision was that no, we've explored that, but we're not going to go forward with that idea. Now, does that come into play with this? I'm not sure. And I don't know if we'll ever really know, because Mike McDonald said, listen, we're going to keep all of those conversations that we had with Connor Williams private. Now, if Connor Williams comes out and decides to talk, have a press conference and give his reasons for everything, maybe some of this stuff comes out. Otherwise, we may never.
Yeah. Otherwise, we'll never know.
But it seems odd, Keith. It's like the whole process. There's a lot of different parts in the process, just starting with the process of the offensive line and John Schneider and acquiring these players, and then making a decision that Oluwatimi and I can't even remember the guy's name, Harris, I think, or somebody.
Nick Harris, yep.
Nick Harris was going to be the center, but we really always knew that maybe we were going to have some deficiencies there. And they wait until the very end of August to make a decision to go after Connor Williams, even though they had him in, like 2 weeks prior for a visit and said that and they had to work out that deal. So they waited to the end on a guy that's coming off an ACL, and then it turns out that, the Seahawks were going to run this shotgun offense, which really didn't suit Connor Williams very well, turns out. And so there's just a lot of things going on here, and maybe, there's some buyer remorse. It seems to me. Now, would it be shocking to me to find out that Connor Williams decides to play next spring and all of this gets kind of, I don't know.
I mean,
he got out of a bad situation for him, maybe.
Maybe. I just think you look at all of what's going on. And remember, this is him choosing to retire. The Seahawks aren't cutting him like they did Tyrel Dodson. And 27, he totally could have been like, let's say they had benched him because of the high snaps. Well, he just needs to be like, hey, you know what? I want to be released. I want to go catch him with another team. And they would have done that. But that isn't what happened. He decided he was done. And we don't know why, and we will find out why, and we can speculate. There's lots of different reasons, but
it just says personal reasons.
Yeah. This was a guy who was a Pro Bowler and, in the past, and has had this, ACL, and has come back and has not played anywhere close to what he used to be. He has been, I wouldn't say awful, but he certainly hasn't been good. This
nice
year.
Middle of the road center. And if you take the mistakes out of it, he's been okay.
And it's been getting worse, not better. And it might just be like, he's like, you know what? My knee still feels like crap. I don't have any power. I don't know if I can do this anymore. And if his heart's just not in it right now, like if you aren't 100%,
and he knows he's causing issues. Yeah. And he knows he's causing issues, and he's not playing up to his standards, nor the standards that his team, he wants to play for his team. Then I mean, I can see that, but also you could kind of shut him down for the year too and not retire. But
I mean, that's the thing. He could have gone to the team and been like, this isn't working. My knee hurts too much. Can I go to IR or something? And then, so that way he can just continue to rehab, and instead of retiring. But no, he chose to retire. He's out. He's no longer part of the team. The Seahawks get half or just under half of his 45% of his salary, back in terms of the cap space because they don't have to pay him since he retired, which is weird because that means he's walking away from money. It also could be something completely unrelated to football, right? There could be other stuff going on.
Brady Henderson says, Williams made the decision earlier this week to retire for personal reasons the coach would not discuss. Asked if he thinks there's any chance Williams has a change of heart, McDonald said, I don't believe so. Olu Oluwatimi will start at center, quote unquote. So that was that. I mean, he just put a nail in it right there. And so I guess, with so much, unknown, you try not to speculate, but you kind of have to a little bit just to kind of get your brain organized around this thing. What does it say about the coaching staff and the state of the organization and the state and John Schneider and the process of acquiring players and all that kind of stuff?
I don't think it says anything.
You think this is really a legit, I'm going to retire, this is personal situation, and it doesn't reflect anything to do with coaching or the team or asking him to do something he didn't want to do or anything like that?
I mean, I think that they acquired him as late as they did because that was when he could pass a physical.
That's for him, yes. But what does it say about the process of Seattle as far as waiting so long?
Well, I mean, I think it was, if you look at what the salary cap situation that they were in at the time, they knew that this offensive line was going to be awful. They knew it. They didn't like it, but they accepted it. And then I think during training camp, they're like, okay, this is even worse than we expected. And so they went out and they rolled the dice and tried to see if they could get an upgrade, and it didn't work out. So, is it bad process? Well, maybe, but at the same time, like, where else are you going to get an upgrade when you don't have salary cap, when the only decent players are available on the free agent market? And, by the time
I have a heavily discounted player coming off an ACL.
Yeah. And so that's how it didn't work out. So to me, that doesn't say anything. This idea that a guy is retiring because he's pissed off at the coaches or he doesn't like whatever, or there's something wrong there. You got to show me that there actually is a problem. Like, there has to be something other than a guy retiring before I'm going to buy into that. I think that he would be
pissed off at coaches, but there could be a conflict of not personalities, but of scheme and fit and asking him to do something else or play a certain way.
If that's the case, then he asks out. He doesn't retire at 27. The fact that he's retiring at 27 is there's something going on that I think is not football. It's either that knee and that kind of stuff, or there's something else going on.
He said it wasn't related to the knee. McDonald did indicate that it was not related to the knee.
Yeah, he's going to say that because he's going to protect his guy, and because if he's going to say that doesn't mean it's not true. You know what I mean? It's not the knee, which you need to say so that if the guy ever decides to come back, he can have a career. If you say that, it's his knee's shot, whatever, no one's ever going to give him a chance. So I think just out of professional courtesy, you say it's not that it wasn't the knee, but it might have been. And it might have been just personal. It might have been other stuff going on. The fact that he went to the team and was like, I think this is what I'm going to do. They didn't ask him to do this. There wasn't a problem that we haven't heard like, oh my God, this is a completely dysfunctional team and coaching staff. There's none of that going on. It's just a guy that honestly, he just doesn't have it in him right now. Whether it's physically with the knee or just mentally and emotionally and, or a combination of the both. He just didn't have it in him to continue to play at a high level. And so he bailed.
So that is definitely plausible. Everything you said, absolutely. Now, I just want to say though that we are speculating a little bit here. Could it be also plausible, given the fact that the team lost 4 out of the last 5 games, given the fact that also the team made a decision on another player just last week as well, another starter on the defensive side to move on from and release. Is there some dysfunction going on in this team right now that
I don't think so.
Maybe the coaches are really trying hard right now to just put a stop to it, put an end to it. I don't know.
I think
obviously
we would have heard
the retirement quote, element of Connor Williams adds another layer, but at the same time, it just seems like, questions will be asked because of the dysfunction currently going on.
Is it dysfunction? That's my question. Because has there been any other issues that lead you to think that it's dysfunction? The fact that the team traded its middle linebacker and got a guy that could that's significantly better, and with that, one of the defensive linemen comes out and says, "Yeah, it's been on us, not the scheme." And then the next game, they play significantly better because they actually do their jobs. And then they look at like, okay, we've got a guy that's been starting. He's leading the team in tackles, all of that. But honestly, his play has been mediocre. And we're going to move on from him because we want to give this rookie a chance, because even though Dodson's played a lot, he hasn't played well. And so if you're going to have a middle linebacker making mistakes, you might as well let it be the rookie. And you don't want a guy who's got a leadership stake and that kind of stuff being, that's when you have dysfunction, is when you bench, they were to just bench him and let him, taint the locker room and that kind of stuff. So they decided, we're not going to bother. We're going to go ahead and let him go because he's a free agent at the end of the year anyway. And, recoup some of the cap space that they spent on him and all of that, and go ahead and let him go, put the rookie in there and just keep plugging along. It's just a thing. McDonald said that this was the plan, which I don't completely believe, but when I say
what was the plan?
He said with this process with Dodson, like that was the plan all along, was the quote that I read. And I'm like, I don't necessarily believe that cutting him was the plan, but I think it was.
So Dodson indicated that after he was picked up from Miami, that he didn't see it coming. No indication he was going to be cut, quote unquote, a drastic change at a key position in the middle of the season. The green dot signal caller on defense,
which he was losing to Jones.
The indication eventually, yes, it was that Dodson was an exemplary player and well liked by the other players in the organization.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I mean,
that's what I mean. But it's that doesn't make his play on the field. Daniel Jeremiah had a good take on this. You look at it and all those, locker room stuff it's been fine, and all of that, but his play just isn't good enough. And at the end of the day, that mattered. And you let him go, you let him catch on with another team, and because otherwise he's going to sit on the bench and possibly become a problem. And they didn't have a problem with doing that. That's not dysfunction. That's, maybe it should have been better communicated to him about what was going on. But like I said, the quote I read was saying that this was the plan. I think the plan was for, if he was bad, that they would just cut him, because that's how they structured the contract. I don't know if cutting him mid-season when he like this to bring up Knight and let Knight have more playing time, it was quote unquote the plan. It's just more of a look at that's where they are right now, right?
Well, and that's why you make that move right now as opposed to waiting. I mean, clearly the team and Mike McDonald felt the defense would be better without him on the roster versus benching him. And it's important to go with your system over altering your system to compensate for a player deficiency. For example, stacking the box to stop the run versus reinforcing your scheme on your normal run fit, so players learn the fundamentals and what the coach wants to run. And if Dodson wasn't able to do that the way that they wanted to execute, you got to go. Now, I don't have any problem seeing Tyrese Knight on the field.
None.
He showed enough, in the times that he did.
He should have been playing already. I think playing him over Baker 3, 4, or 5 weeks ago was called for. They waited. Instead, they traded for Jones to fill that Baker spot. But okay, I still think that Knight should be playing. And if it's not, now that they've got Jones, it should be in Dotson's spot. He needs to be playing. He needs to be on the field. And I don't think you keep Dotson on the roster and on the field to keep him happy at the stake of, at the cost of losing snaps and stuff for Knight. Knight needs to be playing. He needs to develop into whatever he's going to develop into. And honestly, Dotson wasn't good enough to warrant continuing to keep Knight on the bench.
So a lot. That's a lot. So all of that, we just spent 20 minutes talking about just some big things that just happened to this team. Is this a better roster now for it? Or did this Connor Williams thing really kind of throw a wrench in this deal on the continuity side for the offensive line coming back when Abe Lucas has practiced now all week? He's not on the injury report. He's coming back.
Abe Lucas is going to play. That is huge. And so that is massive. And so he's going to play. That's fantastic. The Connor Williams thing, they signed him because he was supposed to be an upgrade over Oluwatimi. Has he been good enough this year to still say that he was a massive upgrade over Oluwatimi? He was not. He has not lived up to expectation.
He's played lower than he has in the past. Yes, but he is still a 15 to 20 ranked offensive center in the league.
Yeah. So now the question is, can Oluwatimi
do that?
Can he match that, or at least get close to it,
or limit the mistakes?
Yeah. Like limit the mistakes. I mean, he's got some deficiencies on himself, but ultimately, like when they signed Connor Williams, they thought they were getting a Pro Bowl level center because that's what he was pre-injury, and his knee was supposedly healthy. So they were thinking that they were getting a Pro Bowl level center. They did not get a Pro Bowl level center. He struggled. He got pushed into the backfield too many times. He lacked quickness at others. He had struggled to get to the second level at times. Like there's a lot that didn't happen that should have. I'm not convinced that this is something that totally just bites them. It's weird. I mean, I've seen players retire mid-season in the past and all of that, but it's still weird. And ultimately, though, if they lose these next 2 games, he was done playing anyway. Because they were going to, at that point.
It's entirely possible.
At that point,
they keep Geno upright. I mean, you know what I mean. But
yeah, but like I said, if they lose these next 2 games, the season's over. And really, if they lose one of these next 2, the season's probably over. And so at some point, you have to get guys like Oluwatimi on the field so you can figure out what your plan is for next year. Because he's either good enough or he's not. And if he's not, you replace him. And if he is, cool. That doesn't mean you can't upgrade him and can keep him as a backup. But you have to know what you have. And you aren't going to figure that out in practice, because at practice, offensive line, defensive line, they are not as physical as they are in games. They can't be. It's just the way the practices are and the way the NFL practice rules are. And so you got to get him out there in a game so you can see him.
Yeah, all of that. So, yeah, so it'll be interesting. I mean, these moves are amazing. So, the Seahawks are coming off a bye. They had a lot of rest, a lot of time to practice, a lot of time to hone in on critical errors and mistakes that they've been making consistently. If they can get rid of some of those things and go in and play a cleaner game against the 49ers. Now, are we going to win? And do we have a good chance to win? I don't know. I don't think so. But can we go in and play a clean game and give us ourselves the best chance? I'm hoping to see that. Now, will it make a difference? I mean, the Seahawks lost to the 49ers at home 36-24 just 5-6 weeks ago.
And it wasn't that close.
And the teams are kind of heading in opposite direction. Well, we did come back and get that game within 7 points or some one-score game. An 8-point game.
It felt
until
like
the interception, though.
It felt like a bigger blowout than that for most of the game. Like, yes, they battled back in the end, and then Gino, made some, let's just say, mistakes. But I never felt during that game that the Seahawks were going to win. I never felt at any point in that game that they were the better team. So this is a game in which, these teams are heading in different directions. The 49ers had a slow start, and they are building, and they've just got Christian McCaffrey back and are looking stronger. And the Seahawks had a hot start, and now they're fading. And I mean, the
49ers are still only one game over 500. They took a last-second field goal to beat the Buccaneers on the road last week. But they're doing well. They've scored 23 plus points in 7 of 9 games. The Seahawks have allowed 26 plus points in each loss, averaging 24.6 over the season so far. 49ers got a 5-0 record against the Seahawks since Brock Purdy took over in 2022. They do give up some pressures on their offensive line, so there's opportunity there if the Seahawks can generate pass rush. The Seahawks pass rush has disappeared. We talked about this on the last episode where we were trying to maybe solve a couple of the issues that they've got, and their pass rush is very anemic now. They started out hot, but Boye Mafe and Derek Hall have just completely been shut down the last 3 weeks.
With some of that
very
has to do
few
with
pressures and no sacks.
Some of that has to do with Dre Jones getting far too many snaps, and some of that has to do with you look, Maffe's getting around the corner, but the quarterback just steps up into a pocket and he can't get there. Needing someone coming up the middle just to prevent the quarterback from stepping up so that he can get there. It's just not all working at once. How do
you feel like Byron Murphy's playing this year, Keith?
I like what I'm seeing from Byron Murphy. He's disruptive. He gets into the backfield. He does some great stuff. He does get overwhelmed in the running game a little bit, which we kind of expected because he's a little smaller. But he needs to learn to use that quickness, his ability to get into a gap, to be disruptive in the running game too. But the sign, the flash plays, the overall trends, I still think he's something special. And most defensive linemen, when you look, especially defensive tackles, when you look at their career, they start slow as a rookie, and it's that time between year 1 and year 2, that's when they make the big jump. And I saw a thing that was Michael Bennett was talking a couple of years ago, and he was saying, it's like, rookies come up and they they're used to being the star and they think they know and they don't want to listen. And then after getting their ass handed to them all year, they finally go, okay, these guys have something to teach me. I should learn. And that's why you see it happen for year 2. And I don't know. It's Michael Bennett. I don't know. Like, I'm not going to say he's wrong. But I expect great things from Byron Murphy. Like I said, has he been dominant? No, but he's done enough. She's shown ability that you just can't teach. At times he's been a good player.
Yeah. Seahawks have 21 sacks and they have a pressure rate of 37.2. The league average is 34. So they're slightly above average on pressures, and they're right middling, with the sack numbers, or slightly below. So that means they're getting pressure, but they're not finishing. It'd be nice to do that. Now, one of the things that can help them do that is to be able to stop the run on early downs better, and more effective. That way they can tee off a little bit on longer downs and so forth and so on.
Yep,
it all kind of works together.
In there and yeah.
Yep. Okay. So here we are. We're facing this 49er team again. It's funny, I kind of want to preview the game itself, but really I just kind of want to talk about our team and how we kind of combat this thing, because they've got a lot of talent on the offense of side of the ball. George Kittle, a lot of talent. Christian McCaffrey's coming back. Yeah, they do in general. Their defense is actually a little lighter than it has been in the past. I think Seattle, if they were on all cylinders on offense, I'm convinced our offense can put 30 points on their defense. But their offense with McCaffrey back now, Juwan Jennings stretching the field, Ricky Parasol now coming into his own. Last game he had 6 targets, 4 receptions, 73 yards and a touchdown. That touchdown he had looked fantastic. Looked like Deebo Samuel out there, only with more speed. Deebo had 6 targets, 5 receptions, 62 yards as well. They're spreading the ball around. There's a bunch of weapons. You don't really know who to cover. And Purdy does a great job managing the offense and working the ball down the field. And they take what defenses give them. I'm not convinced that Seattle has a defense that can win in the trenches against them and really shut them down. My only hope is that somehow or another we get a turnover and Geno and the offense click on all cylinders, and somehow or another having Abe Lucas come back and for whatever reason he becomes the Superman of this offensive line, and they just somehow click with him in there and everything seems to work. The full playbook opens up and we just kind of run our offense for the first time all year in, full clicking on all cylinders and just outscore them. That would be my hope in this game. But other than that, it's hard to see Seattle's defense slowing this offense down very much.
Yeah. I mean, based on last game, where we saw them slow down a really, really good running game, I think defensively they can
Ernest
win.
Jones is legit, isn't he?
Yeah, he really is. I think they can handle themselves defensively enough. I think they can win at the line of scrimmage because I don't think the 49ers offensive line is as good as it has been.
Certainly
in the past.
Dominated us last game.
Yeah, that's not saying much. But so I think the Seahawks can defensively do what they need to do. I'm a little concerned about the speed that the 49ers have between McCaffrey and Samuel. Just being too much.
And Jennings. Yeah.
So we'll see about that. But overall, you've got, I think that defensively, I think you can do enough. Can offensively.
How did we slow down the run game? I mean, last game, Isaac Guerrero had a 99 yards on us and just ran all over the place. Now they add Christian McCaffrey the thing about Christian McCaffrey is he's going to impact the game just as much in the passing game as he does running the ball.
Mhm.
If he happens to run the ball well, I think we're doomed, because that just another element that they have that I don't know if we can slow down. And then you add him into the passing game and get him out in open space, and it's a little frightening. But anyway, go ahead, Keith.
I was going to say, yeah, I think defensively they can do enough. Offensively, can you keep Bosa in check enough that you can actually do things offensively? I don't know. If I'm the 49ers, I'm, moving him around and bringing him up the middle as much as possible, where, the Seahawks are bad, and I think they can shut Seattle's offense down. Now, the Seahawks are getting Abe Lucas back, which is huge. They're getting DK Metcalf, which is also huge. And so between those two things, like that's a big deal.
This is a big deal.
So we'll see. I don't believe that they are that the Seahawks, they need everything to go right. There's the margin for error is really small, and this team
That's
doesn't
exactly
seem
right, Keith.
This team doesn't seem set up to to just avoid all those mistakes. And the way Gino's been playing and how emotional he's gotten and all of that, I could see this game going south simply because a lot of things have to go right. And I don't know if if they can count on, all of them going right. I just don't think it's there.
I think, okay, so you talked about mistakes. Okay, so if Gino throws for 3 touchdowns and doesn't turn the ball over, if Ken Walker runs for close to 100 yards and has a touchdown, and maybe, maybe we have another touchdown in there somewhere from, let's say, Zach Charbonnet. Mm-hmm. And so, Seahawks have been held under 21 points in back-to-back games, but they're averaging 23.3 per game overall. That's 15th in the league. San Francisco's defense held Tampa Bay to 20 points, but their previous 5 games, all the offenses against them scored at least 24 points. So I think that San Francisco has the ability to allow teams to score on them. I think Seattle can score on San Francisco if they play mistake-free ball. We just haven't seen that. We haven't seen it enough. I mean, a couple of games, yeah, but they haven't done it for a while. It's been a while. And they're going to need to do that in order to have any chance in this thing and generate a turnover on defense, which is hard to do. Now, you can kind of get Purdy into a situation. He throws some interceptions now and again. They don't put the ball on the ground very often, but Seattle's going to need to try to figure a way to get an extra possession or 2 out of this game. Control the clock, get that run game going. It's hard. San Francisco defends the run pretty well. They allow 3.8 yards per carry against running backs, and the league average is 4.4. So they're a top 10 rush defense, but Seattle needs to kind of make this happen. If and if they don't, if they fight a good fight and mistake free and still lose, I'm going to say that that's a little progress, because it's hard to win on the road, the NFL, and it's hard to win in San Francisco. And Brock Purdy's 5-0 against us, and all things just need to go right. But this thing needs to get turned around at some point. Why not Sunday?
Winning this game would be huge. It gets them back to 500. It's a win over division rival. It's also it's just an important jumping off point. If you can beat the team that has won the division like the last 3 years, and keep pace with Arizona, hopefully Arizona
you play Arizona the following week.
And, if Arizona struggles this week, and then you go in there with a chance of retaking first place, This game could be huge. I'm not going to predict the Seattle's going to win this, but if, any given Sunday, if you pull this out, like that could change this season. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I mean, a win in this scenario, as much adversity as this team has been facing lately, would really speak to the character of the team, the coach, and Geno Smith. I think as being kind of a leader and depending on how they would win, but I would think that his hands would be all over a win. You've just got to play mistake-free ball.
I can't imagine this team as it's currently constructed winning without Geno having a good game.
Yeah.
I just can't.
Yeah, I agree. So what's your prediction?
I think this ends up as a relatively high scoring game. I think Seattle just doesn't quite have enough. And it ends up being like 31-27 San Francisco.
By the way, the Cardinals have a bye week this week.
Oh, well, there's that.
So, I always like to, I want to be real, but at some point, this team has just got to play. It's got to come together. You've got to play mistake free. And I really think that the time off has enabled the team to really kind of focus and come together as a unit, as a team, get behind each other again. And I really do think that a player like Ernest Jones coming in has really kind of solidified that defense, added some confidence, added some competency to it. And I think they're ready to start playing better down the stretch and kind of maintaining that. The offense has been so difficult. And I think a lot of it stems from the protection issues on the offensive line, not being able to block.
I think it's a combination of that and play calling. And
I'd like to see that improve. If it improves,
the offensive line has been a problem. We knew it was a problem coming in, right? We should have been expecting it to be a problem. You and I were expecting it to be a problem. And that problem has existed just the way we predicted it would. But I think that there's some more things that this team can do to overcome, that issue. And we'll see whether they get there.
Well, the Oluwatimi thing is a big question mark, and now Abe Lucas is a big question mark. Like, how is Abe Lucas on a snap count? Is Abe Lucas on any sort of restriction whatsoever? Is he at a physically able to perform level like he was during his rookie season?
No, man, if he is, this team
does Oluwatimi. Did Oluwatimi take this as a personal challenge, losing that job, and really spend the last 10 weeks working hard in practice, learning technique, learning to huff and grub on what they expect out of that position, and really kind of own it and come in improved? Like, if that's the case, maybe the offensive line going down the stretch is an improved unit, and Geno can limit the mistakes of the offense because he's not under such duress. Because, without pressure, Geno's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Now, you can say that about a lot of quarterbacks, but statistically, it proves out that he is definitely one of the better ones. And we have the weapons. It'd be nice to be able to spread the ball around and get everybody involved. So, by the way, Noah Fant's still out, but they're not going to put him on IR, I heard today. So,
that's
everybody else is fairly healthy, which is good. I'll be very interested to see what the inactive list will be this week. Be interesting. All right. So I didn't give my prediction. So I think that the Seahawks win this game. And I'm going to go with 24-21.
All right. Interesting.
And if they win, it's gonna be such a good feeling because there's a lot there's not a lot to cheer about this year, and I don't want to get to where we're just cheering individual performances yet. Like I still want to be invested in this team. You hear all those things or read these things. Well, we only have a 5% chance based on ESPN's playoff deal, and it's like, yeah, but what if we win? What if we win the next two? What does that do? Well, all of a sudden we're up into the 30% range. Well, that's all you can do in the NFL is every game, like one game at a time. You just got to go, and you got to take that approach, and that's where they're at right now.
If the Seahawks win the next two, don't they pull even with Arizona?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, they would. And they would split San Francisco. Yeah.
So they'd pull even with Arizona and be in a spot where they could, technically they could also be tied with Arizona, but they would be they'd be tied for first place. How do you have a situation where if they win the next two and they end up tied for first place, even if it's a 3-way tie for first place, where you can't be like, oh, well, this team's not going to make the playoffs. Like they're in first place. Like but they have to go do it.
Right.
And this is the hard one. This is the game that is probably the hardest game on their schedule, and they have to go make it happen.
Yeah. And San Francisco is not as formidable as it has been in the past. I think they have some susceptibilities, and Seattle just needs to go out and take advantage. I expect a well-coached, well-disciplined team to show up there and play hard and play well for the one of the few times this year. I really do. I just think it's in them, and they have the opportunity, and they should go get it. All right, let's get out of here. Find Keith on Twitter at Myers NFL. You can find me at NW Seahawk. The show is at Seahawks Playbook Podcast. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform and our YouTube channel. Also, just on a personal note, and I'm not sure about Keith, but I've kind of put my profile over on Blue Sky. A number of Seahawks Twitter folks have migrated over there, and it's worth checking out because you get all the good benefits of Seahawks Twitter without all the downfall stuff that goes on Twitter.
Yeah, I haven't been on Twitter in forever. I know it's part of our outro to say, "Hey, find me on Twitter." You'll
I don't know where to find you.
You'll find an old profile. I'm still there, but I am.
You should check out Blue Sky because it's actually pretty.
I'm going to go check that out now because I am not on Twitter and don't have any intention to ever return at this point, given how toxic that community has become.
It's hard because you've invested a lot. The show is over there. You've got 3,000-4,000 followers or whatever, and you kind of want to pull those people along and make sure everyone's kind of still a part of a community. And it's building like that over at Blue Sky. I could definitely see that kind of eventually working out over there for sure. And it's just a much better, cleaner, nicer atmosphere without all the bots and all the disruption and all the other chaos. So I recommend it. All right. So let's get out of here. Have a great weekend. Have a great game. Let's get back here early next week, if not Sunday late afternoon, and talk about the game. And hopefully it's a win, and we'll go from there. So until next time.
Cool.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook Podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NW Seahawk, Keith is at Myers NFL, and the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.